So, Season 5, the final one of the regular series. Unfortunately, Ivanova has not returned for this one, so consequently, there's a change of plans. Not easy when it's quite clear that the new plan was being hastily assembled already. So being tagged in to replace Ivanova is one Captain Lockley of Earth Force, who arrives and is greeted by a guy we've seen before, but if he has a name, I don't remember it. Him.
Yes, it's hectic, ma'am.
Well, a hectic station is the first sign of a poorly run station.
I look forward to your refinements that will advance that to haphazard.
With all due respect, there's a lot that doesn't fit into a report.
Then the report is incomplete.
Sorry, should we put giant flaming tiki head under G for giant, T for tiki, or just disembodied heads miscellaneous?
It's been my experience that as long as you run an efficient operation, don't go looking for trouble, you'll do just fine.
And while we're at it, let's assume that a cow is a perfect sphere of uniform density. Meanwhile on Mars, 23rd Century Antique Roadshow is incredibly hardcore. The guy tied to a chair is a ranger, and this dude murders him to send a message. Though the ability is rather limited as the corpse can't speak, so the only message that can be sent is usually, "I killed this guy." After the titles, the burning question on everyone's mind is,
why are there wet socks hanging in the shower?
Well, Sheridan answers that with a long story about his drill instructor who said having something to do when you get back is vital.
The only kind of man that gets killed is the man who is done doing whatever it is he's doing. And I know I'm going to come back alive because I got socks to wash.
And now's when she corrects him to ask why they're female Pakmara socks that are hanging in the shower. Because, damn it, woman, I have needs. That's when the call comes in to say that Lockley has arrived. You know, I wonder what would have happened if, instead of introducing a new character, Takashima was brought back as a captain. After 5 years since her one-off appearance, you could recast her if you needed to. I just keep thinking how interesting the mystery would be of why she left and how she came back. What was going on during all this drama? Oh well, they're having to deal with the early days of being married. Sheridan and Delenn, not never mind. Anyway, there's this complication about it because the place isn't big enough to have all of their stuff, and Delenn needs a place to conduct Minbari business in a Minbari setting, so until they can finish constructing that new place on Minbar, they're just going to have to kind of keep both places.
I'm going to miss this place when that time comes, and it's going to take me a while to get used to living on your world.
Plus, it's gotta suck to try to live on a planet where people call you by a hateful nickname. Morning, neighbor. Morning, Star Killer! You're not gonna let that go? Never! With that sorted, Sheridan goes to speak with Lockley, who wants to know why, if B5 is still independent, that she's been put in charge. Well, it's politics. Help try to show the Alliance isn't giving Earth Force the cold shoulder, and ensuring that the person picked will be up to the job. We've got to handle diplomacy and the fighting, depending upon the situation. Trying to do both at the same time, it can give you a whiplash. She's okay with it, so long as Sheridan gives her the authority to actually do things. She doesn't want to be Sheridan's puppet or have him constantly interfering. He's okay with that, so long as he can overrule for political matters and things related to the Alliance. Plus, anything the Master Control Program tries sending against them. Meanwhile, Garibaldi is seeing to security around the inauguration.
No, I know.
Look, last year we had one guy slip through because the place wasn't sealed up right.
Yeah, it was you. So I ought to know. Meanwhile, we see Antique Roadshow is at the bar in the Zocalo, getting ready for the evil plan of evilness. Speaking of which, his delivery arrived in a stasis bubble earlier. Ew, right after Labor Day. He brought this on himself. And at that moment... Officially? Oh, great. Now he's going to make Sheridan have to do paperwork to fix that. This murder is a real jerk. Later, while eating and doing paperwork, a long-haired fellow we'd briefly seen earlier is watching Lockley, and not subtly. I mean, not in an I hope she's eating a popsicle kind of way, more of a why is she even here way, which I gather some fans of the show were wondering as well. Finally, everything goes silent and he sits at the table with her.
Working. Yes, I can see. Books, manuals, directives, regulations. The geometries that circumscribe your waking life draw narrower and narrower until nothing fits inside them anymore.
This is the worst negging I've ever seen. This is Byron, and he wants to have a meeting in Brown Sector later, then disappears. So we're dealing with a telepath. Or a magician. Either one would explain the outfit. Elsewhere, G'Kar gets a visit from Sheridan while working on his holy book, and mentions how Narn don't get their true name until they choose it when they are aged 10, based upon what they believe in, which of course is why my full name is Charles Star Wars Big Titties Sonnenberg. Sheridan is here because the Alliance needs two things, an oath of office and a declaration of principles, and he wants G'Kar to do it. While G'Kar excitedly gets on with the job, Lockley shows up in MedLab to ask Dr. Franklin about the dead guy, who says not only was this done by a gunshot from a PPG, it was also done by an expert. He shot the guy right where death would be immediate. While she mulls that over, she gets a reminder to go meet Byron and his people in Brown Sector, to show her the linking rings trick, no doubt. Lockley doesn't show up alone, though.
We are unarmed, and I assure you, we mean you no harm.
I like that half eye roll, like it's unreasonable to be concerned about heading alone into a dark alley in the most crime-ridden neighborhood on this station.
We refuse to have anything to do with violence or technology.
That's why they want to live on a space station, to get away from technology. They're rogue telepaths with nowhere else to go, so Byron would like to set up a colony here so other telepaths can gather and eventually go to establish a settlement of their own on some planet.
Special Simon, we call him.
He's the only one who's ever been to a barber. He can't speak, but he has perfect recall and can plant images and such in others' minds, like the flowers that he gives to Lockley.
We can do a lot for you, Captain. We can earn our keep.
I see no way this ends badly. Meanwhile, after a productive discussion between Delenn and the Gain, Antique Roadshow arrives to follow the ambassador while Sheridan gets the messages from him. And a voice one, too. Going on about how presidents should die in wars they preside over, which is why they don't declare wars anymore, you know. VPs hate this one weird trick. The murderer kills the ambassador, presumably for the suit since he looks it over, all while telling Sheridan that the one thing that can't be prepared for is the assassin who has nothing to lose. I don't know, the fact President Clark wasn't killed by one of those when so many would have given their lives to see him dead, that suggests this antique dealer is completely full of it. I mean, for one thing, I think these Roman coins are fakes. Why would it be dated 18 BC? Elsewhere, Simon is looked over by Dr. Franklin, who says that he can speak, he just chooses not to. But nobody knows why. And he won't say, on account of, well, you know. But we've got to cut this short. Franklin hates magicians, ever since he had to do his residency under that proctologist who kept doing that long string of handkerchiefs trick on the job. Franklin's been called away to join the discussion on that threat, and Garibaldi isn't going to let anybody downplay it. Yeah, Sheridan is likely going to get death threats all the time now, and not just from his Minbari neighbors, but a dead ranger, expertly killed, plus an untraceable threat, that says this is someone who's not just mad at Sheridan's politics, they're a pro taking this situation personally.
If more of our so-called leaders would walk the same streets as the people who voted them in, live in the same buildings, eat the same food instead of hiding behind glass and steel and bodyguards, maybe we'd get better leadership and a little more concern for the future.
No way. Bad enough I get their flyers and junk mail and obnoxious canvassers showing up. I don't want to bump into any of them at Walmart or something. Watch them flail about in the self-checkout lane, and then that the credit card machines don't use carbon paper and the little shunk anymore. I prefer the comfort of being ignorant at the breadth of their shortcomings instead of confirming that my low expectations aren't low enough. Well, despite everyone's concerns, Lockley backs Sheridan's move to go forward as originally planned.
Done. I'll go tell Zach.
Check out that look. Oh, better dry out those wet socks, Sheridan. think they're going to be the only action you're getting for a while. Garibaldi storms after Lockley, explaining that when Sheridan gets one of these dopey ideas, your job is to talk him out of it. Don't encourage him. She brushes him off as irrelevance since he doesn't actually have a role here anymore. That is a serious mistake. You don't taunt Garibaldi. You're only encouraging him when you do that. You say you don't have a job here anymore. He's going to get a job here. You say anything and he does it. You don't have a battleship anymore. Next thing you know, he's outside the window, tapping on the glass with a grin, and then pulls on that great big horn. During all of this, Simon has been crawling around in the ventilation shafts. It's his way. Newt syndrome, I believe is what they call it. He hears the sound of Antique Roadshow's music doll. Watching him work, Simon gets the image of what this bad guy is planning. But the murderer hears him and starts firing at the ceiling until he sees blood running from it. But don't worry, Simon's not dead yet. While he crawls away and the celebration has started, Garibaldi is off trying to identify the killer, and eventually figures out that this is one of Clark's former stooges, ran a prison where people were tortured and murdered. Now he's a wanted man and blames Sheridan because... shut up. Well, the mortally wounded Simon stumbles into the to-do, and upon seeing the murderer, finally speaks, saying no, and sharing mentally the intention. So the plan is thwarted, but things aren't completely resolved yet.
Back off! Or I'll kill her.
Don't hurt me, I'm just an extra. Simon is passed, but the inauguration is going forward on Sheridan's insistence, unaware that the murderer has knocked out a pilot and swiped a Star Fury. Only Garibaldi sees on this guy's record that he's qualified to pilot one and races off. Meanwhile, G'Kar speaks to the crowd in order to begin the ceremony.
This contains the first page of every holy book of every race that has joined the new alliance.
Oh, good. I was afraid he was going to say, I've written a few words for this occasion, and opens to the first page of that thick book. Now, he's brought this as a symbol that Sheridan is pledging himself on behalf of the faiths of all the Alliance members, and the recognition that everyone is entitled to believe as they wish, or even not to believe at all. In light of the desire to create a lasting peace, I'm sure God doesn't mind. Then again...
Everybody else can go. You have 10 seconds.
Yeah, if any of you are commenting on the truck horn on the battleship, I know how sound works in Babylon 5. Any way you'd like it to. This guy, as established, doesn't care if he lives or dies, so even if he'll die in the process, he's ready to sort Sheridan out. But Garibaldi's grabbed a Star Fury of his own and flown out to thwart him, grabbing the other ship and tossing it away so the station's defenses can blow it up. G'Kar quickly swears Sheridan in so he can get the fuck on with his life, and in the coda, Sheridan speaks to Byron. He's decided to overrule Lockley and allow them to start a colony for rogue telepaths.
Thank you. I will tell the others.
It's worth it just to see your face light up like that. Garibaldi swings by Lockley's new office to say, hey, what has two thumbs and is looking to be a pain in your ass? Boom, this guy. He suggested to Sheridan they need a covert intelligence group, and he's going to stick around and run it. One thing he notes, though, is that the would-be assassin served with Lockley once, which she admits to and says, yeah, you never know with some people. Similarly, Lockley dodges the question of which side she was on during the Civil War, which gives us a moment to ponder what's going on around here. No Compromises is somewhat important, in that it introduces Lockley and Byron and his flock. I give it a stamp of fine. It's not a great start, but there's enough standout moments to offset the weaker parts. Lockley, though, I feel is a missed opportunity. JMS made the decision to put her on the opposite side during the Civil War, which is a brave decision. But aside of a monologue at Garibaldi, the matter is largely unexplored. When Clark's regime is presented as evil as it had been, when the truth comes out that you're on the wrong side of history, Lockley's situation needs to be explored. I'm not saying her position is indefensible. I'm saying the defense of her position is insufficient, given the gravity of the charges here. It's especially important because Lockley is a character who is almost entirely her job. So exploring that is exploring her as a person, something she didn't get much of. If she wasn't going to be given that, then in my view, it's a mistake to include it at all. We need to move beyond it, yes, but that isn't what we get either. If he were listening to me, I'm sure JMS would have valid reasons for all of them, but it's the absence of sharing those reasons within the show that's the problem to me. We know why she felt she was doing the right thing at the time. How does she feel in hindsight? That she had taken the side that commits mass murder, torture, and oppression? The next episode forces Londo to face his crimes, and I cannot help but think that anyone who sided with Clark, even if they did so ignorant of the enormity of the atrocities at the time, might similarly be tormented by the idea that they, as G'Kar will say, "You said nothing." Again, I'm not saying her position is indefensible. It's entirely possible that there are mitigating circumstances that we need to take into account. But if you are an accomplice to something that horrible, one monologue and then applause isn't a defense. It's sweeping it under the rug. And ultimately, it contributes nothing to her character or to the show.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord! You want to be president?
Yes,
Put your hand on the book and say, I do.
I do.
Fine, done. Let's eat.